Blessed to be with you. God bless you and your family. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Don't forget the KIDO Talk Radio newsletter available by just going to our website and clicking on. You get it once a week, all the big stories of the week, plus all the secrets revealed right there at the KIDO Talk Radio newsletter. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say about the newsletter, and we continue to publish that once a week. And look forward to you checking that out if you would do that for us. Joining us now is the author of Moses versus Trump, a contemporary novel, Mr. David Dorson, an assistant chief counsel during the Watergate hearings, and soon to be a best-selling author, we hope. Mr. Dorson, thank you for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure.
You have so many people comparing what happened today to what happened in Watergate, a lot of speculation from the media. Were those accurate comparisons, or were they off the chart?
Well, it's very complicated because no two situations like this are alike. In Watergate, there was more or less a steady march from allegations that only burglars were involved in the break-in of the Democratic National Committee headquarters at Watergate to involvement people higher and higher up. Eventually, John Dean came forward to our committee, and then the tapes, and then the special prosecutor, House Judiciary Committee, who voted a couple of articles of impeachment. Here, it's just a different situation, which has been made radically different by the release of a summary and a supplement to Robert Mueller's report, which suggests that those people, including myself, who suspected that this would be similar to Watergate in its relentless march to a conclusion, may be wrong, that the vindication of the president on involvement in colluding or conspiring with the Russians apparently has been proven wrong. So it's a different situation, and everyone's going to have to reconsider where we are. Now, I've started watching Fox News more and more, and I'm finding that very interesting because I decided that liberals watch CNN and MSNBC, conservatives watch Fox, and we're just not talking to one another. And I'm trying to change that in my case by watching Fox. So I don't know what's going to happen next, but it certainly put a crimp in those people, for those people who were expecting a series of collapses by President Trump and his allies.
You know, sir, you would know more than most, more than just about anybody here at KIDO Talk Radio, how the media, it seemed, CNN has their new series, Tricky Dick, about former President Nixon, the oversimplification comparisons between Watergate and the Mueller report. To me, as you said, I was a child at the time, but it was a gradual buildup. There was a constitutional crisis. We were far from that.
I think that's true. I think that, well, again, it depends on what point you consider us in relation to the Watergate investigation. But it is true that we are in a very, very different situation, and that Nixon never had a day like President Trump had recently, or a week, in which some of the most serious allegations were debunked. So it's some of these things are oversimplifications, and I think that some of us, and I include myself among them, who saw close parallels in some respects, have to reboot.
Well, a lot of quote-unquote liberals or libs, they seem to be retrenching. And we could go on and on. I would love, before we get to the book, and we'll get to that in a second, sir, Moses versus Trump, Trump versus Moses, your new contemporary novel. For you as a person, what was it like to be in that bubble of Watergate? Remember when we only had 3 channels, when AM radio was king? Who knew if the president was going to leave or not? The secret tapes, Halderman, Liddy. Can you take us back to that time from your perspective?
Well, yes, it was. The break-in was in June of 1972. There was a trial before Judge Sirica of the burglars, and Judge Sirica, a very conservative judge, said there's more to it, and he gave long sentences seeking cooperation, and the Senate responded with a committee. And the pace of what was going on those days contrasts with what's happened with the Mueller investigation, although I'm not critical of Mueller for taking the time he took. I started as assistant chief counsel on April 15th, 1973. 1 month later, we were on television 4 days a week with hearings. 1 month. And we went practically nonstop into July. It was chaotic. At one point, I had to go to Senator Ervin and ask him to adjourn early one day because we just didn't have any more material. People were calling, some with information, some who were fantasizing about God telling her, in one case I remember distinctly, about how Watergate was going to come out. The pressures were enormous. Hordes of the media were following every step of every significant person. John Dean suddenly switched, even though we had no evidence that he had done anything wrong, and his conscience just got caught up with his act, and he walked in and said, "I want to tell you what happened." It was the most remarkable thing I've ever seen in my life.
And you were an integral part of that. David Dorson,
Absolutely.
David Dorson joining us. So take us through this novel, Moses versus Trump. Now, a lot of people that love the president, we don't have a sense of humor, at least that's what our critics say. So enlighten us about your contemporary novel. Give us a frame of reference, if you could, sir.
Okay, I've written a couple of serious nonfiction books, one on a federal judge from New York, Henry Friendly, and then one about actually my close friend, Scalia. Justice Scalia and I went to law school together, and I wrote a book about his philosophy, which he cooperated with. And then I decided, well, I want to do something a little different, and I came up with this idea of a libel suit against Donald Trump. And you're right, you have to have a sense of humor if you are a fan of Trump. The book, I try to make it balanced and accurate, but a little bit bizarre. The judge, who's the central part of the case, is a flawed human being, and other people are flawed and are biased, but nevertheless the case proceeds against Donald Trump, who I'm not going to go into detail, but it's for example, let me give you a fact. On the rear of my book, I was lucky enough to get recommendations from some pretty remarkable people, including Derek Bach, who was the president of Harvard and dean of Harvard Law School, John Dean, whom we all know, and police officer and detective Frank Serpico, about whom a movie was made and who was a hero. And I tried to picture what a case would be like with Donald Trump objecting to being hauled into court and being subject to the whim or decisions of a single judge. And it's realistic. The law procedures are accurate, and it's a possible situation. It's a little bit of an oddball situation because someone sues Donald Trump and an evangelical magazine for accusing a lawyer of fixing a case by bribing a juror. But it's quite realistic, even with the humor. The court scenes are straight and legitimate. The book is available on Amazon, and I think people of all sides of the spectrum would find it entertaining. And again, I think you're right. You need a little bit of a sense of humor. But as I said, I try to make it balanced. The antagonists to Donald Trump are flawed, and it's not a whitewash of liberals or anything of the sort. I try to make it as accurate as I could in terms of a law case. And there are libel suits against Donald Trump, and I think this would be educational as well as entertaining.
Mr. Dorson, finally, could you tell us a little bit about your friend Justice Scalia and how long you've known him and his impact on our judicial system, sir?
Well, yes, I went to law school with Justice Scalia and met him hold your breath, in 1958. And we had a sort of desultory relationship, seeing each other occasionally. And then a couple of years after Bush v. Gore, we invited him over, his wife over for dinner, just the four of us, and that started something. And we used to argue. He was a remarkable human being, and he had a sense of humor. He had a sense of curiosity. He was a good listener. And one thing that struck me about Justice Scalia was that he was a listener and he was consistent, so that when his originalism, which has become a major force from absolutely nothing, in which the belief is that we should construe the Constitution as it would have been construed in 1789 or 91. For example, capital punishment was legal then. It should be legal now. You could give punishments that were legitimate then, but some people say not now. And he took his philosophy of originalism, but applied it across the board in almost every case, so that when it led into a liberal result, he followed it. He was, in terms of criminal procedure, he was very strong on the Seventh Amendment's right to trial by jury, on giving defendants protection in cases of illegal searches and seizures. And we used to argue all the time. I mean, it was just a lot of fun. We traveled together I visited him in Ireland, where he was teaching during the summer. We would go to baseball games, operas, horse racing. At the time, I owned some horses, and it was just a ball, because he was such a delightful person and so smart, and also as I said, intellectually curious and willing to listen. A great man.
Well, Mr. Dorsen, as are you. We appreciate you, and good luck with your book. And thank you for joining us here in Idaho.
My pleasure. Good luck to all of you.
Thank you. All right. Who's to say that we don't have the libs on? Mr. Dorsen, again, former U.S. attorney, also the assistant chief prosecutor in the Watergate case, reflecting on his years, comparing Watergate to the Mueller report, and his lifelong friendship with deceased Justice Anton Scalia. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Rolling along, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. This just in, the media says they're not wrong. They're going to continue to try to derail Donald Trump. Never mind. Let's go over this once again. 2,800 subpoenas, 500 search warrants, 500 witnesses, 22 months investigation, 19 lawyers, all of them liberals, all of them Democrats. Most all of them gave money to Hillary Clinton, buoyed by the networks that gave a whopping 2,284 minutes to not covering the Russian collusion delusion, but perpetrating the Russian collusion delusion, right? There is no collusion. Wow. I love this. That they continue to roll on. Never mind $25 million wasted on this.
Public understand just how much trouble the president is in?
To believe that the president isn't compromised requires such a leap of faith.
I think we have all the proof we need of a scandal that's arguably worse than Watergate.
Do we know if there is still this belief and aspect that the president is working for the Russians? I can't answer that.
The U.S. president possibly working for the Russians, possibly an unwitting pawn.
Now, here's what the president said when asked if he was a secret Russian agent.
The president did not directly answer the question.
Why not just say no, if that's the answer?
There is tons of proof of potential collusion.
We have dramatic evidence of collusion.
How is it not collusion? How is all of that not collusion?
The collusion piece of this, piece by piece, starting to be built out.
A political hurricane is out there at sea for him. We'll call it Hurricane Vladimir, if you will.
Donald Trump knows the noose is tightening.
The noose is tightening.
The noose is tightening, if you will.
The noose is tightening around the president.
The noose is tightening. And I think they're shocked that the noose is tightening and that people might go to jail.
He knows he and POTUS are going to prison.
Well, I think they're all going to end up together in prison, and maybe that's a good thing.
Oh, my God.
You might be in legal jeopardy because of the Mueller investigation. But are you scared that you could go to jail?
The walls appear to be closing in on the president.
The investigative walls are closing in.
He feels the walls closing in.
The walls are closing in.
Trump resigns quote, once Mueller closes in on him and the family.
Anybody that writes an op-ed and suggests that Donald Trump has not put himself directly in the target of an obstruction charge is just fooling themselves and some very, very stupid, ill-informed readers.
The stack of counts of obstruction of justice that could be fatal to the Trump presidency.
The House is going to have little choice the way this is going other than to start impeachment proceedings.
The subpoena could relate to two areas of the probe that might ultimately lead to Trump's impeachment.
They are the kind of offenses that would call for impeachment hearings.
If someone walked in my office and said I was a subject of a multi-year criminal investigation led by former FBI Director Robert Mueller, I'd wet my pants.
Mueller reminds me of the starfish, which gets itself tightly around the clam and uses all its stuff to weaken and pry open the clam. Now, this is a battle to the death as far as the clam is concerned. If the starfish is able to open him even a little bit, he can get him open all the way, and that's it, of course, for the clam. He's the starfish's lunch.
The clam, the starfish. What is Chris Matthews smoking? Figuratively, hopefully not literally. This is the Trump derangement syndrome at its best. By the way, you're listening to KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Kevin Miller with you. Now, if you make a mistake on your job, or you make a mistake in life, and it's an honest mistake, whether it's your family, whether it's your friends, whether it's your coworkers, usually we forgive you. America is the home of second chances. But for years, we've talked about how dangerous and disruptive the media has been. For years, we've warned you about the deceptive, devious little libs in the media. These guys are off their rockers. And these mistakes were not mistakes meant honestly. You talk about Russian collusion, delusion. Boy, this fits right into the Russian narrative because you've got the media going after the guy that was lawfully elected to try and discredit him, to try and make him not the real president. Sometimes you get fired in life. Sometimes you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Man, I have been there and I have been there. I hope and pray that you never go through that. You're just a victim of a bean counter or someone that just didn't like you, right? But these folks have committed media malpractice. If they were surgeons, if they were lawyers, if they were airline pilots, if they were the poop scoop guy, and I love the poop scoop guy, they'd be fired. And they should be fired. But who would you replace them with? Even more ignorant folks. If you were tuned in, you heard the former assistant chief prosecutor in Watergate who thought that they had Trump. They didn't. Watergate was significant. Constitutional crisis. Richard Nixon this. This was nothing more than another coup attempt. And, of course, it was the backup plan because Hillary Clinton was supposed to win. Whether you're a person of faith, whether you're not, there are two roads to go, maybe more. I'm not a theologian. Salvation by faith, salvation by works. How can one argue that Trump wasn't meant to save the republic after 8 years of devastation under Obama? And that wasn't enough for the deep state. That wasn't enough. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. I'd love to hear what you have to say next. First, KIDO Talk Radio, traffic and weather together.
I'm just Channel 7's Eric Gebert.
And I'm Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Coming up next, the Senate committee passes the hemp legislation. Now it goes to the full Senate. Governor Little says, hey, if we get some amendments for law enforcement, we're going to pass hemp. Why the fix was in from the beginning and why passing hemp, making it legal, will be one of the state's biggest mistakes ever. And we'll get your reaction to those stories and more with me, Kevin Miller, next on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Kevin.
Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Coming up, Rudy Giuliani versus Chris Cuomo. Sean Hannity unleashed on his own network last night on the Fox News channel. Don't forget Sean Hannity today at 3. And, of course, your calls on the issues that matter to you at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And It's interesting, the Senate, and this is really no surprise in the state Senate, the same state Senate, the same state House that looks like we're not going to get the grocery tax repealed. But that's okay. We've got a plan to handle that. We have a plan for them if they don't follow through with it. Took a look at the hemp legislation, right? Took a look at the hemp legislation and said, well, we've consulted with some law enforcement, and it looks like we're going to be able to get that hemp bill through. And the big problem is that law enforcement, and they've been on this program quite a bit, saying, look, we need to model this program like they do in Kentucky, because you can have people running around here with the hemp and then all of a sudden claiming falsely or perhaps accurately that it's hemp and not marijuana. And you can't tell the difference. The canine dogs, unfortunately, we love the canine officers. They can't tell the difference, right? That's a major concern. But when you have people that have a vested financial interest in getting this crop approved, it's amazing how good things happen in the Idaho legislature. So I expect the Senate to pass hemp. Governor Little quoted yesterday saying, well, if the amendments are there for law enforcement, we're going to sign it. No harm, no foul. Now, we keep hearing about hemp this and hemp that, and hemp is the greatest crop ever. Well, what happens when everybody starts growing hemp? The value decreases. And then we're going to need to grow something else, something profitable, maybe marijuana. If you caught Lars Larson on our program a couple weeks ago saying what happens to states when they legalize marijuana, like Oregon. This is just the road to legalization. We'll talk more about it at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We go to the publisher of the Gem State Patriot and the king of the hempsters, Tea Party Bob on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. Another good show as usual. I tend to agree with Pro-Life's comments this morning about the hearing, about not hearing the voices of our Washington representatives. And it is particularly curious since they all claim to be fans of President Trump. All four of our representatives should be out there at the forefront talking about the terrible injustice that was done to our president and the unrelenting scourge of outrage by the liberal media about collusion. I, for one, am greatly disappointed, and we haven't heard from them. And I suggest that if you want to hear from the representatives, that the listening audience get out their emails and telephone and let them know that you want them out there. You want them in the forefront. They should be supporting our president in light of the Mueller's report's vindication of all of this collusion baloney. If you really want to get to the culprits, those responsible for allowing the denigration of Trump for the past 2 years, you really need to hit them in the pocketbooks, and we need to show the companies that support CNN and MSNBC and NBC that and all the others that the people of this country mean business by canceling our subscriptions to their services. Now, the problem is nobody is willing to go that far as they feel it would be an inconvenience to them. Do you really think anyone would be willing to cancel the subscription to Comcast Cable, which owns MSNBC, or DirecTV, which is owned by AT&T, or even the AT&T phone service? It's just not going to happen. So if you want to change the country, you have to be willing to make the sacrifices as our president has done. We have become dependent on the cable, Wi-Fi, and digital phone service, not to mention the social media, that we allow these companies to continue to feed us misinformation whenever and wherever they want. And until we take some action, it's not going to change. And just a quick word about the hemp legislation. You need to stop beating up on the hemp bill. You're right about the money behind it, but I also agree with you that too many of our representatives lied about the grocery tax. I encourage the senators to vote yes on this hemp bill because it's going to be good for the Idaho farmers and good for our economy. And I'm hoping that reason will prevail on this vote.
Now, let me hit you with the hemp thing.
Yeah.
Everybody grows hemp. The price of hemp goes down, and now you got to move on to another product.
Kevin, please.
Tea Party Bob.
You'd like to push things about 5 years ahead. By the time they get a hemp crop up, we're talking next year. By the time enough of them start growing it, it's not going to be a problem. Yes, over time, there will be more hemp than we might need, but they're going to find more and more uses for it. I told you yesterday there are 26,000 known uses for it. There are many more.
If something is too good to be true, it usually is.
I don't disagree with you, but I think in this case, we missed a big boat years ago because of the political arena that squashed the hemp, and they stopped it from becoming a huge commodity here. And I think it's high time we took that back from the government.
There'll be high times, that's for sure, with the hemp.
Oh, you don't get high from hemp, Kevin.
High times in the gem state. That's the new blog coming soon. High times in the gem state, everybody.
You're just too much, my friend. You need to relax a little bit. Have a little hemp.
Yeah, have some hemp. It'll mellow you out, buddy.
I hope you have a wonderful day today, Kevin. Stay out of the rain.
And you. God bless Tea Party Bob.
Okay, my friend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Before we get to the hemp, Rudy Giuliani going toe-to-toe with Chris Cuomo last night saying, apologize, apologize, apologize.
If you attempt to obstruct, that's something that we want to look at.
Oh,
I'm not
my
saying
God.
he's guilty.
Now we have an attempt to obstruct a non-crime. This is like stretching to prosecute the man.
You are defining it that way, and it's very clever.
No,
what I'm saying
it's not very clever.
You
it's
had
justice.
You had a panel.
You guys on this network
what have I done?
Have tortured this man for 2 years with collusion, and nobody's apologized.
First of all,
before we talk about obstruction, apologize for the overreaction of collusion.
Not a chance.
Well, of course you're not.
Not a chance.
Of course you're not, because you're not being fair.
No, please. You know better than that, or you wouldn't be
No, I
here.
don't know better. I am outraged by the behavior of these networks.
Okay.
Collusion, 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 collusion,
First of all,
collusion. No collusion.
Okay, here's my case.
Collusion.
Here's my case.
Apologize.
Never. Here's my case.
Never?
Never. I didn't do anything wrong. These questions are real.
Well,
they needed to be regarded as such,
treasonous?
and they needed to be investigated. Did you hear me say that?
No, but I heard.
Do I hold you to account for what people say that I?
Now, here we have it at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We could go back and play the clip. Treason, Russians, arrests, the White House, Donald Trump Jr., the president, Ivanka, Jared Kushner. You know, maybe they thought that they wouldn't win. And what they're trying to do is make an example so that good people, good conservative people that love God, don't get involved in politics because they don't want the smear job. That's what they're doing. They're trying to make the president an example. Okay, we didn't get you. We spent $25 million, 40 FBI agents, 20 lawyers, 500 subpoenas, how many arrests of non-entities? But we're going to show you why you should get involved, why you shouldn't get involved in politics. And yes, the allegations of treason, to me, when you make those against the president of the United States, that's treason.
That you don't?
There were people on this network that did. How about this network should apologize? How about Jeff Zucker should
Do I ask you to apologize for everything the president says that's not true?
No.
Okay, good. So we're even.
But you asked me to apologize for what I do, and I do. If I
Tell me what I did, and I'll apologize.
I'm not saying you should do it.
But then why should I apologize?
Your network should apologize.
I don't apologize for the
Your
network.
network should apologize.
I'm proud of the network.
NBC
I'm proud of the job it does, but I
and
only
the New York
control
Times
what I
should
say.
apologize.
All right, hold on.
And the Washington Post should apologize.
Hold on. I'm not a media critic.
And Adam Schiff should apologize.
Look, that's a question for him. I'm happy to ask it. This is what I'm saying.
Before we start jamming him up in obstruction, could we take a day off and say
I'm not
the
jamming
man
him
was
up.
falsely accused?
I'm not jamming him up. I'm saying
this is
show
a cockamamie.
people.
This is a cockamamie.
I don't believe he was falsely accused.
Obstruction. He was.
Show people
it's not
what
true.
is in the record
What do you mean
and let them decide.
What do you mean he wasn't falsely accused?
He did a pattern of things that triggered the curiosity and concern of a lifelong prosecutor, Rod Rosenstein. Not some Clintonista, not some Democrat congressman.
And there we have it. They still won't give it up. Chris Cuomo from CNN at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So Chris Cuomo, Rod Rosenstein, right, the Steele dossier, Andrew McCabe, and I feel like Sean Hannity Jr. here because he does such a great job of breaking this down. It's amazing when you think about this. So you had Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, when they weren't having an affair, when they weren't talking about how great Hillary Clinton was. By the way, Page now saying, we all knew the fix was in. We were told to lay off the Democrats. There should be an independent prosecutor on that statement alone. Bruce Orr saying the Steele dossier is not what it's supposed to be. Steele coming up with allegations based on something he saw not on CNN, but CNN-I, which means you send it up through your iPhone. Anybody could have done that. Had an anti-Trump bias. Where is the presumption of innocence in America today? It certainly is not in the place of the mainstream media. Duke Lacrosse, Covington, Kentucky, the UVA rape scandal that didn't happen. The Bundys, all of these allegations, and they don't care about justice. They care about ruining good, conservative, God-fearing people. That's their agenda. They don't like God. They don't like the Republic. They don't like the United States of America, so they seek to destroy it. Thank you, former President Obama. So I'm sitting here watching this going, give it up, guys. Give it up. Somebody needs to pay. Somebody needs to lose their job. Now, that won't happen. They'll all get bonuses. But what they tried to do in getting rid of this man, you want to talk about the deplorables? They're the deplorables. 22 months, 19 lawyers, 40 FBI agents, 2,800 subpoenas, 500 search warrants, 500 witnesses, 2,284 minutes promoting the Russian collusion delusion. Right? This is not the United States of America. And if it hadn't been for guys like Sean Hannity and Lars Larson, Glenn Beck and you and gals, who knows? They would have gotten away with it. Brave people of Congress standing up to the deep state. Because even if they don't get you, the government can use their resources to ruin you. Gosh, 5 years ago, you'd think I'm a right-wing kook. But this is mainstream stuff going on today. And the media is just crazy. Chris Cuomo, a seasoned prosecutor. No, when you had Strzok being instructed by Andrew McCabe, the number 2 guy in the FBI, because James Comey had to go, hey, there's nothing here, man. We don't like Trump, but there's nothing here. Go ahead with it anyway. And the secret FISA courts. Boy, I hate to say this, but this all goes back to Edward Snowden. And I know a lot of people have issues with Edward Snowden. Edward Snowden revealed the deep state for what it was, and his reward was he got sent to Russia. They spy on us. They collect our information. And the hypocrisy of this is there's no right to privacy anymore in America. There's no right to freedom anymore in America because they can find out what you took at the grocery store, what's your favorite Netflix movie, what you bought for your spouse, and they let people come into the country illegally to take our social benefits, to take our educational benefits. There is no standard. If you're a devious little lib, you get to run wild and free. If you're a conservative, you are under suspicion. Think about that. The liberal media's most embarrassing moment, the Mueller failures. And they won't give it up. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Rolling on the right side, don't forget Glenn Beck coming up next. Kevin Miller in the morning. Phone number is 580-5436. 580-KIDO. So coming up, we'll have more of the collusion, delusion from the Democrats and your phone calls. But an issue that we seemingly have covered on our own here, the issue of legalized hemp made a big move yesterday. The state Senate will consider legalization to legalize hemp that the governor said Monday could get his signature if amendments sought by law enforcement and their officials and their colleagues are approved. The amendments, which haven't been made public, seek to make it possible for officials to intercept marijuana illegal in the state without being stymied by laws that make hemp legal. No dissenting views yesterday in the vaunted, highly thought of Senate State Affairs Committee. They unanimously, and not really surprisingly, voted to send the legislation to the full Senate to add amendments to the bill that had already passed the House. Now, again, this was always a tough slog. In fact, the easier play would have been Oh, I don't care. What do you think? Well, I'll tell you what I think. I think we needed more hearings, more diligence, more insight from law enforcement, as opposed to what we have today, which is if you are a vested interest in the state, all you have to do is get someone to throw the bill in. People don't give it a lot of insight, and they pass it, right? Again, you compare hemp legalization to the grocery tax. Which impacts more people? Which makes a bigger difference? I would argue repealing the grocery tax, not hemp legalization. So the governor was quoted yesterday. I was a little chagrined that it got out of the House without those amendments. But it sounds like there's a pretty good concurrence on the amendments. Well, of course. But there's still no way to test hemp and marijuana in this state. The legislation would legalize the growing and selling of hemp products containing 0.3% or less of THC, the cannabis compound that gives marijuana its high. Backers say the state's climate is ideal for growing hemp that could produce millions of dollars in revenue for Idaho farmers. Kind of like those internet marketing things where you send in and they're going to teach you how to make money. Now, initially, maybe hemp will be a good product for the gem state. And maybe will be known as the hemp state instead of the gem state. And I know a lot of people say, Kevin, it's great, it's wonderful, like our distinguished colleague Tea Party Bob. On the other hand, I think it makes it very easy for people that don't have the best interest of people in Idaho to get your foot in, and then all of a sudden, you're talking medical marijuana, then you're talking marijuana, and then you've become Oregon. How wonderful for us. And I've been amazed at the people that have moved here from Oregon talking about how their once beautiful Emerald State has been destroyed. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Opponents say legalized hemp could make it more difficult to enforce the state's prohibition against marijuana. Actually, and I love how the writers in this piece say prohibition against marijuana. No, it is illegal. Marijuana is illegal. It's enforcing federal laws because hemp comes from the same family that produces marijuana. Blah, blah, blah. Senator Winder, this isn't about an ag issue out there, at least to me. This is about how you provide a balance of allowing a potentially crop that could be beneficial without the disadvantage of THC. Right, but I mean, we've gone a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years without this crop. How did we survive without it? More on that in a minute. KIDO Talk Radio, traffic and weather together. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Good morning, Dave.
I'm just Channel 7's Eric Everett.
And I'm Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's just share this with you.
Do you believe that the Trump campaign colluded with the Russians in the 2016 campaign?
Yes.
Do you believe the president himself colluded with the Russians?
Yes.
There is circumstantial evidence of collusion. There's plenty of evidence of collusion or conspiracy in plain sight.
And this is the beginning of the end for the Trump administration.
No American involved with President Trump's campaign conspired or coordinated with Russia to impact the 2016 campaign.
Investigators found no evidence that President Trump or his campaign conspired or coordinated with Russia.
It was a complete exoneration, and it certainly was a complete exoneration on the issue of collusion. And that is not just good news for Donald Trump. That is good news for Americans.
There we have it. It's time to move on, but they won't let us. All right, Kevin Miller here reminding you, don't forget the Boise Music Festival coming up June 22nd. It will be Pitbull. It will be the Eli Young Band, plus many more artists. If you're new to the Treasure Valley, this is the 10th year. That's right, the 10th year of the Boise Music Festival at Expo, Idaho. Big times. You go in, you can win free tickets. You can buy your tickets. You can buy VIP passes. It's a wonderful event, really kicks off the summer right here in the Treasure Valley. And again, we've got the Boise Music Festival, and then afterwards, kind of the end of summer, we have the Spirit of Boise Balloon Classic. But more details at KIDOTalkRadio.com. Ray and I, great job as always. I sure appreciate everybody listening. Tell a friend. We've got to keep rolling on the right side. God bless. Keep the faith. Glenn Beck is next. Good morning.